In the grim darkness of the far future, even home is a battlefield. What is a home when humanity spans 1,000,000 worlds? When the sky itself is ruled by gods that demand obedience, blood, and silence? On Terra, on Armageddon, on a nameless rock orbiting a dying sun, everywhere humanity endures, the word home means something different. And yet, in every place, it is the same. A shrine to survival in a universe that has forgotten mercy. Most who dwell within the Imperium of man will never see a sky untainted by smoke. They live and die beneath ceilings of rusted metal and concrete, in hives that stretch so tall they pierce the clouds, or in tunnels so deep that daylight is myth. For billions, home's a room no wider than a coffin, shared with others who pray not to dream, because dreams are dangerous things in a place where demons listen. Imagine it, a single flickering lumen candle, its light stuttering across a wall of cracked plaster and holy scripture. A family kneels before an image of the emperor, his face eroded by centuries of touch, by the endless pressing of lips, of hope, of desperation. They murmur the catechisms of shelter, words passed down through countless generations. Walls strong, air clean, flesh loyal, soul pure. A prayer against the warp, against plague, against doubt, against the simple terror of being forgotten. The air tastes of machine oil, sweat, and incense. Somewhere above, a manufacturing bell tolls. Shift change. Thousands rise. Thousands lie down. The rhythm never ends. It is the heartbeat of the hive. Children are born into that pulse, live by it, die by it. The sound of the machines replaces the lullaby. The hiss of the vents becomes the song of the hearth. And yet there is love here. Crude, weary, but real. A mother hides a small scrap of parchment beneath her mattress. A child's drawing of a sun, of a bird, of something impossible. She will burn it soon. Possession of unapproved imagery risks accusation of heresy. But for now, it remains. Her secret rebellion against a world that has outlawed imagination. There are homes like this on every world. On the Agri-moons, homes are carved from packed mud and blessed with wax seals to ward off warp spawn. Families sleep among hydroponic stalks taller than men, their air thick with spores and insect hum. They wake at dawn to harvest food they will never taste, for it is bound for the tithe ships of the administratum. They speak of Terra, as others once spoke of heaven, a place of gold, where the emperor walks among the faithful. None will ever see it. On Forge worlds, home is the sound of forges roaring through the night. The workers' dwellings are built from scrap metal and half-living machine guards, their walls warm with the pulse of coolant pipes. To sleep is to listen to the hymn of the Omnissiah, sung by distant choirs of servitors whose voices crackle with static and pain. The people pray not for comfort, but for function. To live is to serve is to exist. But even this flickering imitation of comfort, is a luxury compared to the underhive. Down there, beneath the levels of sanctioned habitation, homes are carved from refuse. Entire generations build their lives around the skeletal remains of ancient machinery. Candles made from rendered tallow-light corridors, thick with mold and rust. Rats the size of cats feed on corpses half hidden by rags. Children learn to walk amid decay and ruin, their first words curses against hunger. And yet faith endures. In every hovel, from the grand hab blocks of noble families to the sewer chapels of the forgotten, a single truth binds all. The emperor protects. His image watches from every wall, his gaze painted, printed, carved into metal or bone. Some whisper to him before sleep, asking forgiveness for sins they cannot name. Others speak to him as to a father they have never met, but always feared. For in the Imperium, love and terror are one and the same. In some homes, the emperor's likeness is all that remains of civilization. On worlds scarred by war, survivors live in bombed-out shells, walls pocked with bolter fire, roofs melted by plasma. They hang purity seals over craters where bedrooms once stood. The parchment prayers flap in the wind, fragile as hope itself. Each word is a plea that the Inquisition will pass them by, that they will not be mistaken for heretics, mutants, or worse. There are stories, whispered by voidsmen and pilgrims, of places where home means something else entirely. On the shrine world of Ophelia VII, the faithful dwell within cathedrals so vast they contain entire cities. Their homes are cells carved between buttresses, chambers warmed by candlelight and incense. Children grow up hearing the endless chant of devotion echoing through marble halls. To them, the sound of prayer is the sound of life itself. When the bells ring, even the newborns weep. On death worlds, home is the campfire brief, flickering, always ready to move. There, survival is the only form of worship. The people wear charms of bone and metal, invoking the Emperor's mercy as they sleep beneath the poisoned stars. They know that to build walls is to invite death, so they live in motion, their faith as transient as their lives. In every corner of the Imperium, home is both sanctuary and prison. It is where loyalty is tested, where the soul is measured by how much suffering it can endure without breaking. To question is to invite ruin, to hope is to sin. And yet, humanity clings to the fragments of what once was: a mother's lullaby, a father's blessing, a child's whispered dream. These too are relics. But beneath the endless devotion lies something else, something unspoken. A growing silence between the prayers. A question that no one dares voice aloud. What if the Emperor does not hear? The Ecclesiarchy teaches that doubt is the weapon of the enemy, the whisper of the warp itself. But in the smallest, darkest corners of the Hive, people have begun to wonder. When the vents stop hissing, when the lights die and the cold sets in, they listen. Not for salvation, but for the sound of something answering back. There are reports suppressed, forbidden, of homes that have changed, of icons that bleed oil, of vox speakers that murmur new prayers, unfamiliar voices speaking from the static, of families who vanish overnight, leaving only symbols burned into the walls, words in a language older than mankind. The Adeptus Arbites dismiss such tales as heresy. The Inquisition burns entire blocks to silence them. But the whispers remain. One such home was found on the edge of the Hive of Gathis Prime. Its walls were covered in script, not painted, but carved from within, as though the building itself had grown words like veins. The symbols glowed faintly, pulsing like a heartbeat. There was no sign of the family, only their shrine, overturned. The image of the Emperor had been scorched beyond recognition. In its place, a mirror of blackened glass. Those who entered did not speak again. The building was sealed, the area declared off-limits. The administratum erased the records. But among the scavengers, a rumor persisted, that the mirror still stood, whispering to those who passed too close. Whispering of a different home, one, not bound by flesh or faith, but by something deeper. Perhaps that is what the Imperium fears most. Not rebellion, not Xenos, not the endless hunger of the warp, but the idea that humanity might one day remember what home truly means and realize it no longer exists. Across 1,000,000 worlds, the same prayers continue. Walls strong, air clean, flesh loyal, soul pure. The words echo through corridors of steel and dust, through hive spires and tomb cities, through hearts that beat with both faith and despair. But somewhere, deep beneath the hum of machinery and the chants of the faithful, something stirs. A silence vast enough to swallow prayers whole. And when it rises, when the last lumen flickers and dies, perhaps the Imperium will finally see what it has built. Not homes, not sanctuaries, but prisons made holy by fear. And then, for the first time in 10,000 years, someone may ask the forbidden question once more. If the Emperor protects, who protects us? The lumen light dies, the walls breathe, and the Hive dreams. Faith is not the light that saves us. It is the fire that consumes us. The Hive dreams still. 1,000,000 souls whisper in their sleep, and somewhere in the void above Gathis Prime, a ship burns without sound. Its distress beacon repeats the same message every 13 seconds. Home is not home. The Vox interceptors of the Astra Militarum flag it as corrupted signal code. The Adeptus Mechanicus requests immediate data quarantine. The Ecclesiarchy declares it a spiritual contagion. And yet the message continues to echo, transmitted from a vessel long since lost to the warp. Beneath that dying sky, the Hive endures. In the shadow of Habspire 909, a preacher stands upon a mound of rubble voice carried by rusted amplifiers. His name is Hierodeacon Malchus, and his sermons once filled cathedrals. Now he preaches to the broken and the exiled. The Emperor hears all, he shouts, his voice cracked by years of ash. Even in silence, he watches. Even in decay, he reigns. The crowd murmurs back, their chants brittle, half-hearted. They no longer believe the words. They fear not believing them. Among them, a guardsman listens. His flak armor bears the marks of 3 campaigns. His eyes are dull with the weight of survival. He remembers worlds where the Emperor's name was shouted before every charge, every death. But here, in the smog and rot, the name feels hollow. He whispers to himself, not in prayer, but in confusion. If he hears all, why does he not answer? Night falls over Gathis Prime. The Hive's upper spires vanish into storm clouds. Below, the Underhive breathes in its poison. There, deep within the skeletal guts of the city, a patrol of Arbites finds something impossible. A wall of flesh, grown from the concrete, pulsating with faint life. Embedded within it human faces, eyes open, mouths silent. A single word is carved into the surface. Remember, the Arbites purged the site with fire. Records are sealed. The report vanishes into the vaults of the Ordo Hereticus. But rumors leak through smugglers, through faithless preachers, through the whispers of servitors whose memories were not fully erased. And so the question spreads like plague. What are we remembering? In the upper levels of the Hive, where air is rationed and light is gold, the noble houses plot. Their homes are immaculate shrines of marble and glass, walls etched with purity seals. But even there, the rot has begun. One lord, a man named Severn Holm, has begun to hear voices in his vox net, whispers calling him by name. He consults the local confessor, demanding an exorcism. The confessor listens, pale-faced. The voice, faint but clear, echoes from the vox speaker behind them both. You built this home from their bones, Severin. How do you sleep? Holm orders the speaker destroyed. The confessor prays for forgiveness and sends word to the Inquisition. 3 nights later, the whole spire collapses inward, folding upon itself as though swallowed by the earth. No explosion, no quake, only silence. The morning after, the sky above the Hive turns red. Pilgrims take it as a sign of divine wrath. The Ecclesiarchy proclaims a planet-wide fast. The Mechanicus declares atmospheric malfunction. The Guard mobilizes. Faith and science clash in the streets, both convinced of their truth. Meanwhile, the Underhive grows restless. Fires burn in the dark. People whisper the name of a new prophet, the voice of the forgotten. They say she was once a manufacturing worker, blinded by radiation, who now sees visions in the dark. She preaches not of the Emperor's mercy, but of his absence. Her sermons spread through the cracks of the Hive like smoke. He left us, she says. He built the stars and then turned away. But we are still here. We are his shadow, and the shadow has learned to dream. The Arbites hunt her. The Inquisition brands her a heretic, but her followers multiply. In the lowest chambers, where light never reaches, thousands gather to hear her words. And when she speaks, strange things happen. Machinery hums without power. Metal weeps oil like blood. And those who listen too long begin to dream of golden halls, broken, empty, echoing with the sound of distant weeping. On the 9th day of the fast, a squadron of the Imperial Guard is dispatched to restore order. As soldiers are weary, their faith strained. Among them marched the same guardsman who once questioned the silence of the Emperor. He carries his lasgun, as though it were a relic, his hands trembling not from fear, but from memory. When they reach the gathering, they find no rebellion, only prayer. The heretic kneels before them, her eyes hollow voids of light. She smiles. You came home. The order is given to fire. The air fills with red light and the scent of ozone. When the smoke clears, the crowd is gone. Not dead gone. The chamber stands empty, except for a single object on the floor, a mirror of black glass. Command seals the area. The mirror is transported to the orbiting frigate Sanctus Vixillum for study. The ship's astropaths die within the hour. The mirror sings to them in their dreams. Across the planet, things begin to change. Vox channels fill with whispers. Pit feeds flicker with images of ancient cathedrals, their doors opening into light. Entire hab blocks fall silent overnight, as if swallowed by sleep. The faithful call it the silent benediction. The administratum calls it contagion. The ecclesiarchy sends more priests. The guard sends more guns. The Inquisition sends a name. Inquisitor Seraphine Vale. She arrives beneath the storm, her ship cutting through the ash like a blade. Her armor bears the sigils of 100 purges, her face hidden behind a mask of porcelain white. When she speaks, even generals kneel. Vale enters the Hive with a retinue psyker, assassin, scribe. She studies the ruins of Hold Spire, the sermons of the forgotten, the mirror sealed in stasis. She listens to the whispers in the Vox, and for the first time in decades, she prays, not to the Emperor, but to silence. Her scribe records her words. The walls are remembering, the stones are dreaming. This world is speaking his name backward. By decree of the Ordo Hereticus, Gathis Prime is declared under quarantine. No ship may leave, no word may escape. But in the dark, secrets do not die, they multiply. The guardsman dreams again. He sees his home, his real home, burning in light. He sees the face of the Emperor, not as a god, but as a man weeping over a throne of ash. And in the dream, the man speaks. I did not make them slaves. They made themselves. He wakes screaming. His quarters are sealed. His mind is marked for observation. But the words have already spread past from tongue to tongue, from soldier to preacher, from heretic to child. They made themselves. The phrase becomes a prayer and a curse. Whole regiments whisper it before battle. Some replace their purity seals with it. Others carve it into the walls. The ecclesiarchy calls for excommunication of the entire planet. Inquisitor Vale refuses. She has begun to see patterns, ancient sigils hidden within the Hive architecture, matching the shape of the mirror. The city itself is a cathedral built not to the Emperor, but to something older. At its heart lies the Basilica Obscura, sealed for millennia. She descends with her retinue, torches flickering in the stale air. The deeper they go, the more the walls seem to move, like living stone. Choirs of servitors line the corridors, their mouths sewn shut, their hearts still beating. Finally, they reach the inner sanctum. A throne stands there, simple, unadorned, carved from black marble. Upon it, a skeleton sits upright, draped in the robes of a high priest. Its skull bears a crown of iron, its hands clasping a tome bound in human skin. Vale opens the tome. The words within are written in High Gothic, but inverted, like reflections. Her psyker reads them aloud, trembling. The script speaks of a ritual, the consecration of home itself. Not a place of safety, but of captivity. Humanity's cities, its worlds, its very dwellings were not sanctuaries, but cages built to contain the echo of divinity. As the words are read, the walls begin to hum. The air grows warm. The mirror aboard the Sanctus Vixilum fractures, light bleeding from within. Across the Hive, every lumen flickers in unison. And then, for the first time in 10,000 years, a voice fills the minds of all who still live. Do not seek me in your homes. I am not there. The transmission lasts 7 seconds. Every servo skull collapses. Every machine spirit screams. And when silence returns, the stars above Gathis Prime begin to dim. Inquisitor Vale kneels before the throne, her mask cracked, blood running from her nose. Her scribe stares at the broken tome, his faith shattering like glass. What have we built? He whispers. Vale looks up, eyes hollow. Not an empire, she says. A tomb. Above them, the Hive trembles. Vox towers fall. Pilgrims kneel. The guardsman clutches his rifle as the ground splits open beneath his feet. The sky bleeds fire. And in the ruins of his home, the black mirror reforms perfect, unbroken. It reflects no light, only faces. Millions of them. Watching. Waiting. The last Vox message from Gathis Prime is a whisper, carried on the edge of static. He is coming home. When faith burns too long, even light becomes a weapon. The fires of Gathis Prime are seen from orbit, a slow, uncoiling storm of red and ash. Vox channels scream with prayers and orders that bleed into one another, until both become indistinguishable. The administratum names it planetary collapse. The ecclesiarchy calls it divine judgment. But for those still alive beneath the choking sky, it is simply home. Inquisitor Seraphine Vale watches from the citadel balcony as the world she swore to protect begins to consume itself. The hive below is a lung of fire and smoke. The people have stopped running. They kneel in the streets, faces turned to the burning heavens, as if waiting for the Emperor's gaze to return. She cannot tell whether they pray for salvation or for the end. Her retinue has fractured. The Psyker lies in the infirmary, his mind split open by visions of a second throne empty, infinite, waiting. The assassin has vanished into the ruins, drawn by whispers that carry her name in voices not her own. The scribe writes endlessly, his quill moving without pause, chronicling words she cannot read. Sometimes he looks up at her with eyes no longer human and says softly, "It is remembering through me." Vale receives word from orbit. The mirror recovered from the ruins has replicated itself. The Sanctus Vixilum now carries hundreds, all pulsing in rhythm like organs, sharing one heartbeat. The ship's crew speak of seeing their reflections move when they do not. The captain requests immediate exorcism rites. Vale knows the truth. There is no exorcism for what has begun. Down below, the war for faith ignites. The remnants of the Astra Militarum clash with ecclesiarchal militants in the streets of the upper hive. Both sides claim to defend the Emperor's will. Both carve purity seals from the skin of their dead. The air hums with less fire, each beam slicing through the smoke like divine judgment. The screams rise and echo, bouncing off the metal canyons of the city until they sound like chants. Between the barrages, silence stretches a silence so thick it feels alive. Soldiers use the pauses to reload, to pray, to remember the faces of those who once waited at home. In one burned-out hab block, a guardsman finds a child's doll, half melted, holding a parchment sealed with wax. He opens it and reads, "Walls strong, air clean, flesh loyal, soul pure." The words that once comforted now feel like a curse. He looks up and through the shattered window sees a column of flame rising from the Basilica Obscura, the same place where Vale found the tome. The fire is not consuming the stone. It is birthing it, reshaping the cathedral into something else. The architecture grows like bone, ribbed and pulsing, forming new spires that twist toward the heavens. Above, the Sanctus Vixilum receives a transmission, a voice, familiar and impossible. It is not speaking from any known frequency, yet every crewman hears it within. The throne is not empty, it says. It has always been filled with you. In the void, the ship's reactors begin to hum in patterns that mimic heartbeat rhythms. The mirrors tremble. Crew members begin to speak in unison, finishing one another's sentences as though guided by a single mind. The Mechanicus priests tear out their augmetics, screaming about impurity, but their screams form a chant that sounds like worship. On the surface, Vale's vox bursts to life, thousands of voices screaming her name. Not in rage, in reverence. She turns to her scribe, who continues to write. His parchment is covered in symbols that shimmer faintly. They are not words, they are coordinates. The pattern spreads across the floor, glowing faintly blue. "Where does it lead?" she whispers. He stops writing, looks up, and for the first time his voice is his own. "Home." Vale gathers her faith like armor. She orders her remaining forces to follow the coordinates, through collapsing tunnels and catacombs that have not seen light in centuries. They descend into the planet's marrow, where the stone hums like a living organ. The walls bear frescoes of ancient humans kneeling before stars that look back at them. They reach a chamber older than the Imperium itself. In its center stands a structure vast, spherical, alive. Its surface reflects light, but shows no reflection. It pulses like the mirrors aboard the Sanctus Vixilum. Vale steps closer, and the surface ripples as if recognizing her. From within, a whisper. "Welcome home, Seraphine." She falls to her knees. The voice is warm, familiar, unending. It feels like the Emperor's presence, what she had prayed to her entire life, but inverted, intimate, and utterly human. "Who are you?" She asks. "I am what was left behind when he ascended, the breath he exhaled before he turned to light." the memory of what he feared to remember. The words wash over her mind like fire. Images burst behind her eyes. Terra before the throne, a man weeping among ruins, a promise whispered across millennia. She sees the Emperor not as a god, but as a father, desperate and fallible, carving sanctuaries from guilt. Homes not as refuge, but as tombs for the remnants of his humanity. Her heart shatters. Then all this, all our faith, was never meant to be eternal. It was meant to contain me. The sphere's surface begins to crack, light bleeding from within. Her soldiers scream as reality distorts. One by one, they vanish absorbed, unmade, remembered. Vale stands alone, her mind flooded with a presence vast and sorrowful. Above, the war halts. Every gun falls silent. Priests drop to their knees as the skies peel open not into stars, but into mirrors. The reflection of Gathis Prime stares down upon itself, endless and inverted. In that reflection, every face turns upward, waiting. Vale feels the presence within her chest, pressing outward, pleading. "You cannot hold me," it says. "I was never meant to be one." She realizes the truth too late. The Emperor's divinity was not a singular being. It was a fractal of human faith, mirrored across countless souls. Each prayer, each home, each shrine was a vessel to contain a fragment of him. And now, those fragments are remembering themselves. The galaxy trembles. Warp storms ignite across nearby systems. Astropaths collapse, their minds filled with voices of their own reflections, screaming to be free. The Imperium calls it heresy. The Mechanicus calls it evolution. The Inquisition calls it apocalypse. Vale opens her eyes, glowing with golden fire. Around her, the chamber reshapes, stone turning to light. The presence speaks through her now, calm and sorrowful. The Emperor never left. He became us. But now you remember, and memory unbinds. On the Sanctus Vexillum, the mirrors shatter in perfect unison. From their remains, a wave of energy spreads outward, erasing void and matter alike. Ships vanish without explosion. Their crews turn to ash or light. On the planet, people begin to change. Their eyes turn silver. Their skin glows faintly. They speak in unison, repeating the ancient prayer reversed. Pure soul, loyal flesh, clean air, strong walls. The reversal burns the words into the sky. Vale watches as reality fractures, and yet she feels no fear, only understanding. "We are his echo," she whispers. And echoes always return. She raises her hand to the glowing sphere. It collapses inward, not destroying, but transforming. The chamber dissolves into radiance. Her form vanishes, her armor falling empty to the floor. Above, the mirror in the heavens fills with her image seraphine Vale, no longer human, crowned in light and sorrow. Her voice carries through every vox, every mind. The Emperor does not protect, he remembers. And now, so do we. Every hive, every city, every home within range begins to hum. Walls vibrating like strings of a vast instrument. The vibration spreads, connecting worlds, forming a lattice of sound across the void. For the first time in 10,000 years, the galaxy itself seems to breathe, but not all share in the awakening. In the heart of the segmentum solar, deep beneath the golden throne, the custodes sense the tremor. The Emperor stirs just slightly, his eyes open for the briefest moment. And he smiles. Across the Imperium, the Astronomicon flickers. Warp roots shudder. The stars dim, then blaze anew. The light is different now, colder, sharper, alive. The reflection of Gathis Prime fades from the sky, leaving only silence. But those who survived swear that for a moment they saw every world reflected in its surface, every city, every soul shimmering together like facets of a single, endless home. Then the transmission ends. The last words carried across the void are spoken in 1,000 voices, each one the same. The Imperium has remembered itself, and somewhere, beyond the reach of time, something vast and unseen whispers through the void, gentle and terrible. Now, let us see what we have built. The Imperium stirs like a wounded god. From the burning ruins of Gathis Prime, a signal radiates outward, invisible yet undeniable, a pulse in the void, echoing through the warp like a heartbeat reborn. Astropaths scream in their sleep, their minds burning with visions of silver eyes and shattered thrones. The message carries no words, only a feeling, memory, and the terrible weight of awakening. Across the segmentum, fleets drift from their courses. The void itself shudders, as if space resists remembering what was forgotten. The Adeptus Terra scrambles to contain it, to name it, to cage it in reports and sigils and decrees. But there are no words for what is happening. Only the silence of realization, the quiet horror of knowing the Emperor's light is changing, and perhaps has been all along. On Terra, the priests of the Astronomicon kneel before the golden beam that has guided mankind for 10 millennia. Its color shifts, faintly, subtly. Where once it burned gold, now there is silver threaded within it, like veins of cold light. They pray harder, some weep, others scream that the Emperor's gaze has turned away. But the beam endures, its rhythm slower, heavier like a breath drawn for the first time in ages. In the void, aboard the battle barge mooring of saints, Captain Iolan Veth stares at the flickering reflection of his own face in the viewing glass. The light of distant stars dances across his armor, illuminating the purity seals that have begun to curl and blacken. His chaplain kneels beside him, whispering the litanies of certainty. Veth does not listen. He remembers Gathus Prime. He remembers the voice that said the Emperor remembers. And he wonders if the Emperor remembers. Does he also regret? The Vox hums. A transmission bleeds through the static, not from any known channel. It is not sound but feeling heat, sorrow, longing. The ship's machine spirit wails in confusion. Crewmen collapse, muttering fragments of prayers they never learned. In the silence that follows, Captain Veth gives the only order that still makes sense. Prepare for descent. They are returning to the place where it began. Meanwhile, in the shattered ruins of Gathus Prime, the survivors of the faithful rebuild their cathedrals from the ash of the old. They carve new icons, blending emperor and angel, light and shadow, salvation and guilt. Each wall bleeds as they inscribe it, as though the city itself rejects their faith. They ignore it. Faith is not comfort, it is defiance. The soldiers who remain have ceased using names. They call each other remnants. They no longer swear by the emperor, but by memory itself. They wear the old aquila not upon their chests, but burned into their palms so that every act of creation, every bullet, every prayer, bears the mark of their doubt. In the ruins of the Basilica Obscura, something still moves. The chamber where Inquisitor Vale vanished now breathes like a lung of stone. Within it, a new shape has begun to form, neither throne nor prison. The material is not metal, not flesh. It is memory solidified, thought given form. Those who look upon it too long forget who they are. Above the ruins, thunder rolls a sound not of weather, but of the warp itself convulsing. Lightning arcs across the clouds, each flash illuminating faces of those long dead. They watch silently, their expressions unreadable, their eyes hollow stars. The guardsman, one of the few who survived Vale's descent, wanders through the wasteland of his homeworld. His Laskin is dead, his rations long gone. Yet he walks, guided by a voice that speaks from within the wind. It is her voice, Vale, soft and distant. Remember what we were, it says. Before belief became law. He tries to answer, but his throat produces only dust. Far away, the Inquisition fractures. Ordos fight among themselves, purging those who question the Emperor's divinity. Some claim the event on Gathus Prime was a Xenos contagion. Others whisper that it was truth. Heresy spreads not through rebellion, but through revelation. For the first time in centuries, the Inquisition doubts what it is sworn to protect. At the edge of the Segmentum Obscurus, the warp boils. Demon worlds flicker in and out of existence, their lords howling in confusion. The Chaos Gods sense something shifting beyond their comprehension. A change not born of corruption, but of remembrance. They rage and feed, but their feast tastes of ash. In the depths of the Hive, the people begin to dream the same dream. They stand in endless corridors of light, where walls whisper forgotten hymns. A figure waits at the end of the hall, tall-robed, golden. But when they reach him, his face is their own. The dream spreads faster than any plague. Back on Terra, the High Lords convene, panic cloaked in ceremony. Each speaks of containment, of control. None speak of understanding. The Fabricator General demands silence on the Astronomicans' change. The Ecclesiarch demands crusade. The Lord Commander Militant speaks only once. If the Emperor is changing, perhaps he is awakening. The chamber falls silent. No one breathes. The sound of the word awakening lingers like a curse. And then, across the void, the black ships begin to return empty. Their cargoes of psychers gone. The navigators report, seeing shapes moving in the warp that mirror their ships exactly, following them like reflections in glass. Some begin to question whether they are the originals or the echoes. The captain's ship reaches orbit above Gathis Prime. What was once fire is now a sea of silver mist, swirling across continents. He can see lights beneath its cities reborn, but wrong. Their geometries pulse, shifting with every heartbeat. He feels the pull to descend, to stand upon the ground where humanity first remembered itself. He orders the drop. As the ship breaks through the atmosphere, the mist parts. The landscape below is not ruin, it is transformation. The stone glows faintly, as though the planet itself has become a living shrine. Every mountain bears carvings of human faces, serene and infinite. He whispers, "What have we done?" The chaplain answers, "Perhaps, Captain, we have prayed too well." The landing is chaos. The ground hums, reacting to their presence. The men form ranks, weapons ready, but no enemy comes. Only the wind, whispering fragments of voices that sound like loved ones long dead. Some soldiers drop to their knees. Others fire into the empty air until their power packs run dry. Through the haze, the guardsman appears. His armor is scorched, his eyes alight with something not entirely human. He salutes the captain. "You came back," he says. "She told me you would." "Who?" the captain asks. The guardsman smiles faintly. "The one who remembered first." The earth trembles. A low vibration builds beneath their feet, rising through the bones of the world. From the ruins ahead, light blossoms cold and silent. The soldiers raise their weapons, but the guardsman lowers his. "Don't," he whispers. "It's not an attack. It's a choice." The light takes form, a figure of gold and shadow, neither emperor nor man. Its face is infinite, shifting between all who have ever prayed. When it speaks, its voice is both thunder and sorrow. "Faith made me. Memory freed me. What will you make of yourselves?" The captain's breath catches. Around him, men tremble. Some drop their weapons and weep. Others scream defiance. The chaplain falls to his knees, torn between worship and terror. "What are you?" he cries. The figure tilts its head, as if amused. "What are you, when no one commands you to be?" The sky fractures, revealing not stars, but countless eyes, watching from the reflection of another universe, one where humanity never forgot what it was. Warp storms surge like tidal waves, clawing at reality's edges. The air fills with the scent of ozone and incense. The captain lifts his weapon, then lowers it. He realizes there is no war to fight here, only the question that has haunted mankind since its first prayer. To kneel or to stand? He opens his mouth to speak, but the world shudders violently. The figure turns toward the heavens as if sensing something vast approaching. For an instant, every reflection across every mirror in the galaxy freezes. From the direction of Terra, a light brighter than suns ignites. The Astronomicon burns white, flaring like a dying star. Its voice ancient, broken echoes across every world. "I remember you." The figure of gold closes its eyes. So does he. The wind stops, the clouds still. The galaxy holds its breath. And then, silence so complete, it feels like the moment before creation itself. The sky split open like an old wound, light spilling in ribbons of fire. Every voice that ever prayed to the Emperor screamed at once. From orbit, Gathis Prime was no longer a world. It was an open eye, silver and gold, staring into the void. Fleets halted mid-battle. Vox channels filled with static prayers and broken hymns. Across the Imperium, faith trembled. The Astronomicon pulsed once, twice, and then dimmed. The Emperor's light faltered. Captain Iolan Veth stood upon the trembling ground, his boots sinking into dust as shimmered like ash and memory. Around him, his men formed a ring, some kneeling, some firing blindly into the storm of light that now rose from the heart of the ruins. Above, the clouds twisted, forming the suggestion of a face too vast to comprehend. The guardsman from before knelt nearby, whispering a name he no longer remembered. The figure of light, neither man nor god, stood at the center of it all. It was brighter now, yet its form seemed to decay as it shone, flickering between holiness and horror. "The Emperor remembers," it said again, voice like the breaking of a star. But memory has a cost. The words rippled through every soul. Some fell to their knees in worship. Others clawed at their own faces, desperate to forget. The chaplain rose, eyes wide with revelation or madness. "You are his echo," he said, voice cracking. "You are not the Emperor. You are the sin we buried beneath his throne." He lifted his crozius and charged. The weapon met light, and the light consumed him. No scream, no flame. Only the soft hiss of faith unmade. The captain watched in silence. He had fought orcs, heretics, and demons. None had felt like this. None had felt so human. The thing before him did not command obedience. It asked understanding. "If you are not him," he said quietly, "then what are we to believe?" The figure turned toward him. For an instant, its face became his own. "Believe that he was once like you," it whispered, "and that he remembers what you forgot." The world began to shake. Mountains split. The ruins of the basilica rose into the air, as if gravity itself bowed before the revelation. From the fissures beneath, tendrils of silver light erupted, reaching toward the heavens. The warp screamed. 1,000 astropaths died in unison. Ships across the galaxy lost their course, their navigators blinded by visions of a golden corpse, weeping tears of starlight. Veth fell to his knees. The light was inside him now, coursing through his veins, filling him with both agony and awe. He saw everything Terra as it was, the Emperor before the throne, alive, human, weary beyond measure. He saw the wars, the betrayals, the burning of faith into empire. He saw that the Imperium had not preserved his will, it had buried it. The guardsman clutched his head. "It's too much," he gasped. "We're not meant to see this." His voice broke. He wasn't a god, he was Hughes. "Then why are we still alive?" Veth whispered. "Because he remembers," the light answered. "And remembrance is mercy." A blinding pulse struck the ground. The world howled. Every soldier screamed as the ground itself rose in waves of molten silver. The planet was unraveling, its matter folding inward, reality bending beneath the truth it could no longer contain. Above them, orbiting ships were torn apart by unseen gravity wells, their wreckage spiraling toward the surface like burning angels. Still, Veth stood. His armor cracked, his lungs bled, but he refused to kneel. "If you are mercy," he shouted into the storm, "then show it, save them." The figure tilted its head, sorrow etched into every flicker of light. "I cannot save what will not let go." A silence deeper than death followed. The silver mist began to collapse inward, swallowing the ruins, the soldiers, the sky. Veth could hear their prayers fading, some begging for salvation, others for oblivion. He turned to the guardsman, who was staring into the storm with tears on his face. "What now?" Veth asked. The guardsman smiled faintly. "We remember," he said. "And that's enough." The light surged once more, consuming everything. In that moment, time fractured. Every memory, every belief, every lie humanity ever told itself burned in perfect clarity. The Emperor's name was not spoken, it was understood. And with that understanding came pain too vast for mortal flesh. Then darkness. Not the absence of light, but the fullness of silence. When sight returned, Veth found himself standing amid ruins made of glass. The world had stopped shaking. The figure was gone. His men lay around him, some dead, others kneeling, staring at the sky. The Astronomicon was visible even from here, a distant sun now burning pure white. Its light no longer golden, no longer divine, only real. He fell to his knees. His reflection in the glass beneath him, showed a face marked not by faith, but by truth. The guardsman stood nearby, holding the chaplain's cracked crozius. "It's quiet," he said softly. "Is it over?" Veth shook his head. "Nothing ends," he said. "It only remembers differently." Far above, the void was no longer still. From the heart of the warp, something stirred, a presence vast, mournful, patient. It was not chaos. It was not divine. It was the echo of every prayer ever unanswered. The Imperium would call it heresy. But Veth understood. It was humanity itself, awakening. He looked toward the horizon. The ruins of cathedrals gleamed faintly, their broken windows reflecting the new light. Statues of the Emperor had cracked and fallen, yet in their shattered faces he saw compassion, not wrath. Perhaps this was his will all along. Not worship, but remembrance. The guardsmen turned to him. "What will we tell them? The others, the worlds, the priests, the lords of Terra?" Veth stared into the sky, where the astronomican's pulse steadied once more. "We tell them the truth," he said, "and they will call it heresy. Will you fight them?" He smiled faintly, the expression weary but alive. "If they make me." For a moment, the wind moved gently across the ruins, carrying with it whispers that might once have been prayers. Children's laughter, the sound of bells, the echo of humanity before empire. It was gone as quickly as it came, but it was enough. In the distance, engines roared. The surviving ships of the fleet broke through the cloud cover, their banners torn, their symbols burned. The men who emerged were silent, eyes hollow, faith uncertain. Veth stood among them, the first to kneel not in worship, but in remembrance. From the heavens, a final flicker of light descended, touching the world like a benediction. The astronomican's pulse synchronized with Veth's heartbeat. For a brief, impossible instant, he felt the Emperor's presence, not as a god, but as a father, grieving and proud. Then the light faded. In the silence that followed, the galaxy shifted. The warp quieted. Planets whispered. The ecclesiarchy would deny what happened. The Inquisition would erase it. But somewhere in the dark, on worlds scarred and forgotten, the faithful would begin to pray differently, not to a god who ruled, but to a man who remembered. Veth closed his eyes, the dust settling on his armor. "Ave Imperator," he whispered, voice trembling. "May we be worth your memory." And above him, in the emptiness between stars, the Emperor remembered. The ash of Gathus Prime drifted through space like slow-moving snow, illuminated by the thin, dying light of its sun. From orbit, the world was no longer blue or green, or even gray. It was glass and silence, a single wound upon the galaxy. No one spoke its name aloud anymore. On the star charts, it was marked only with a sigil of silence. Those who once prayed there now whispered their litanies to empty skies, unsure if anyone still listened. In the void above the dead world, the last fragments of the fleet drifted without formation. Burnt ships, cracked hulls, vox arrays whispering static prayers into eternity. The Emperor's name echoed still, but it was different now. Softer, questioning, like a memory carried by those too weary to forget. Captain Iolan Veth stood before a viewport, his reflection faint against the glow of the dying star. His armor was scarred, his eyes hollow, his faith uncertain. Yet something within him endured a pulse, faint but steady. They had survived the impossible. The figure of light, the collapse of reality, the breaking of faith. But survival felt hollow. Each man aboard had seen too much, known too deeply. They had glimpsed what should never be known, the humanity behind the divinity, the flaw within perfection. And in that flaw, they had seen themselves. The guardsmen sat alone in the chapel of the ship, staring at a cracked icon of the Emperor. The candles were gone, the altar blackened by fire. Only the scent of ash and oil remained. He reached out and touched the broken face, fingers tracing the cracks like wounds. "You were never a god," he whispered. "But we made you one. And maybe that's why we fell." Somewhere deep in the vessel, the servitors still chanted, their voices warped by static. Walls strong, air clean, flesh loyal, soul pure. The words no longer comforted. They lingered like ghosts, reminders of obedience without understanding. Outside the chapel, The chaplain's Crozius lay in a glass case, its half split, the aquila burned away. A relic of a faith that had burned too brightly. Veth paused before it, his gloved hand hovering just above the glass. "He believed to the end," he murmured. "And perhaps that's what faith truly is." He turned away, his reflection lingering behind, as if the man he once was refused to follow. The ship drifted toward the system's edge, its engines reduced to whispers. They passed through the remnants of shattered moons, their fragments gleaming like frozen tears. The Vox crackled with faint transmissions, distress calls from distant sectors, fragments of sermons, the cries of planets still fighting wars that would never end. The galaxy, it seemed, did not notice one world's death. Veth stood in the observation deck as the last of Gathis Prime disappeared behind them. "All this death," he said softly. "And still, the Imperium marches on. No one will speak of what happened here." The guardsman approached, his face drawn and pale. "Maybe that's mercy," he replied. "Some truths aren't meant to be remembered, but we remember," Veth said. "And that means it will never truly fade." They fell silent, watching the light of the Astronomicon shimmer faintly across the void. It was weaker now, flickering, like a candle struggling against a storm. To those who had seen the truth, that light no longer meant salvation. It was memory, the Emperor's final heartbeat, still echoing across the stars. Veth thought of Terra, of the golden spires and endless prayers, of billions who bowed each day before a throne of bone. Did they feel it too, the dimming of the divine? Did the high priests wake in the night, cold with fear, realizing the light they worshipped was not eternal, but wounded? He would never know. The ship's choir began to hum, their hymn low and unsteady. "In death we are remembered," they sang, their voices blending with the hum of the engines. "In faith we are forgotten," the melody carried through the corridors like wind through ruins. It was not the song of victory, but of endurance. On the lower decks, the survivors gathered. Soldiers, adepts, medicae all stripped of rank, of purpose. They spoke not of orders or glory, but of memories. One man described the sound of rain on his homeworld's rooftops. Another spoke of his mother's voice, reciting the litany of waking before dawn. A third said nothing at all, his hands shaking as if holding something unseen. Above them, the stars turned. The warp was quiet, though not at peace. Somewhere beyond sight, the chaos gods stirred, whispering in frustration. They too had felt the shift, the fracture in the great illusion. The Emperor's silence was not their victory. It was something else, a waiting, a stillness before revelation. The guardsman slept at last. He dreamed of the figure of light, its voice soft as dust. "Do not worship," it had said. "Remember." When he woke, he wept without knowing why. Veth could not sleep. He walked the corridors of the ship, hearing whispers in the walls, echoes of prayers half forgotten, the murmured faith of those who died believing. He wondered how many worlds had burned under the same lie, how many hearts had found solace in it. Was it wrong to find peace in falsehood, if the falsehood gave life meaning? He reached the airlock and looked out into the void. The stars were endless, cold and beautiful. Somewhere among them, new wars were already being fought, new faiths rising, old ones dying. It would never end. Humanity would keep reaching, keep building cathedrals upon corpses, keep lighting candles against the dark. Because that is what it means to live. The ship's Vox sparked. A transmission from a distant world fragmented, nearly lost in static. A voice reciting the same words he had heard on Gathis Prime. Walls strong, air clean, flesh loyal, soul pure. The mantra survived. Faith survived. Even truth could not kill it. Veth closed his eyes. For the first time in his life, he did not know whether that was a blessing or a curse. Days passed. The survivors spoke less. Food ran short. The Emperor's light faded further. Some began to pray again, quietly, as if to fill the silence. Others refused. Yet all of them looked toward the same horizon, waiting for anything to answer back. Then one night, as the ship drifted between two nameless stars, the Astronomicon flared. A single pulse of gold spread across the void, gentle, patient, like a sigh. Every heart aboard felt it. Every man and woman paused, heads bowed, not in fear, but in understanding. It was not command. It was not salvation. It was farewell. Veth stood alone on the deck. "He's gone," he whispered. "Or maybe he's free." The guardsman stepped beside him. "Then what are we now?" Veth's gaze followed the fading light. "Not servants," he said. "Not believers. Just human." The stars burned silently around them. The galaxy turned, vast and indifferent. On distant worlds, wars raged, temples rose, and faith rekindled in 1,000 new forms. The cycle would continue, as it always had. But somewhere, in the quiet heart of the void, a single ship drifted with its lights dimmed, carrying within it the last men who remembered what home had meant before faith replaced it. A chronicler would one day find this record, its data fragments scattered among the wreckage of forgotten fleets. He would listen to the final transmissions, hear the fading voices of the faithful, and write in the annals of history. Here ended the light of Gathis Prime. Here began the silence that taught men to remember rather than worship. He would wonder then, as all chroniclers do, what truth lay behind the myths, whether gods are born from belief, or belief from the hunger for meaning, whether survival is the greatest sin or the last prayer. And in the vast, eternal quiet of the void, the question would linger, unanswered. If memory is mercy, what then is forgetting? The stars did not reply. They only burned, eternal and indifferent, witnesses to all that was lost and all that endured. This is how the Imperium remembers, through silence, through ruin, through the faint echo of faith that refuses to die. Not in triumph, but in endurance, not as gods, but as men. And somewhere, beyond time, the Emperor dreamed still. If you felt the weight of this story, like, subscribe, and share. Let others remember with us. Leave your thoughts in the comments below, your faith, your doubts, your truth. The Imperium listens.